Have you ever felt the weight of frustration when someone's choices make no sense? When logic seems absent and common sense feels like a stranger? That feeling is more than just annoyance. It's a mirror that reflects not only the world around you, but also the quiet, persistent questions you carry inside yourself. What if some of the confusion you see in others is actually a warning sign, a reflection of patterns that could quietly slip into your own life if left unchecked? Imagine the power you could unlock if you could spot these patterns early, if you could recognize the subtle signs that lead people astray, and more importantly, guard yourself against them. Every day we encounter people whose decisions defy reason. Perhaps it's a friend, a colleague, or even a stranger online. Their choices seem careless, impulsive, or thoughtless. The frustration you feel when observing them is a signal, a call to awareness. It's a reminder that clarity, wisdom, and self-reflection are not gifts given lightly. They are cultivated through conscious effort, through attention, and through the willingness to see uncomfortable truths. When you learn to recognize the hallmarks of poor judgment, the shallow thinking that leads to repeated mistakes, you gain an advantage most people never even consider. You begin to navigate life with sharper insight, making decisions that protect you, elevate you, and accelerate your path toward growth. But understanding this goes deeper than simple observation. It is about connecting to the part of yourself that refuses to settle for mediocrity. It is about awakening the part of your mind that recognizes patterns, learns from mistakes, and builds resilience against chaos and confusion. When you develop the ability to discern between thoughtful action and reckless thought, you stop being a passenger in life. You start taking control. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to strengthen your own judgment. The frustration you once felt watching others stumble transforms into clarity, into fuel, into a quiet confidence that comes from seeing the world in a way few people do. And there is a reward here, a deep, almost intoxicating reward. Because the truth is, the more you understand these signs, the more you protect yourself from unnecessary pain, wasted energy, and broken opportunities. You begin to surround yourself with people whose minds are aligned with growth, with logic, with vision. You attract clarity. You attract focus. You begin to live a life where choices are intentional, where your actions carry meaning, and where every decision becomes a step toward your highest potential. The frustration you once felt watching others makes way for admiration of your own discernment and respect for the path you are carving. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, are you willing to see what most people refuse to notice? Are you ready to recognize the patterns, the habits, the small signs that reveal a lack of thoughtful thinking? If you stay with me through this journey, you will gain a map, a guide to understanding the minds around you, and more importantly, to fortifying your own. By the end, you will not only recognize these signs in others, but also develop the clarity and courage to ensure they never define you. You will be sharper, wiser, and more resilient than you ever imagined possible. And that, more than anything, is worth paying attention to. Think about the people in your life whose words and actions seem disconnected from reality. Their decisions may be impulsive, their reasoning shallow, or their understanding incomplete. At first it may feel like a simple annoyance, but there's a deeper truth hidden beneath that surface tension. Every choice made without thought, every reaction driven by habit instead of reflection creates a ripple, an invisible force that shapes not only their world but also the energy around them. Recognizing this is not about judgment, it's about awareness. It's about learning to identify the markers of shallow thinking so you can shield yourself, elevate your own decision-making, and create a life built on intention rather than chaos. When someone repeatedly ignores facts, dismisses logic, or refuses to learn from mistakes, it exposes a lack of self-discipline and awareness. This is not an abstract idea, it's a psychological pattern backed by years of research. Human minds that fail to pause, to reflect, or to consider consequences are prone to repeated failure. Observing this in others is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront a question you may not have asked yourself yet. Are there moments when you act without thinking? Are there habits, impulses, or blind spots that could quietly erode your growth if left unchecked? Awareness of these tendencies in others becomes a mirror. It becomes a tool to refine your own thought process, to protect your vision, and to strengthen your resilience. And here is where true power begins to emerge. Understanding these signs is not just about spotting errors, it's about seizing the opportunity to rise above them. The clarity you gain allows you to make choices that others overlook. It gives you a quiet confidence, a calm certainty that your actions are grounded in reason, foresight, and purpose. When you see how careless thinking manifests in repeated failures, you start to value every decision you make, every word you speak, every action you take. You begin to measure yourself not against the noise of inconsistency around you, but against the standard of deliberate, mindful action you set for yourself. The emotional impact of this realization is profound. You feel the frustration of wasted energy and lost potential in others, but it transforms into motivation, a fuel that drives you to build, to improve, and to protect the integrity of your life. You no longer allow thoughtless behavior to derail your focus. You learn to set boundaries, to demand clarity from your mind and the people you allow close. You develop a mental shield that guards against distraction, impulsivity, and poor judgment. This is not arrogance, it is awareness. It is self-preservation at its highest level. It is the mindset of someone determined to rise above the chaos and create a life defined by wisdom, not by error. Imagine the satisfaction of moving through life with this kind of clarity. Imagine knowing that your choices are deliberate, informed, and powerful. Imagine the confidence of understanding the patterns that trap others while you navigate a path of thoughtful action and meaningful progress. Every interaction becomes a lesson, every observation a source of insight, and every challenge an opportunity to refine your mind. By learning to recognize the subtle markers of shallow thinking, you gain an edge that is quiet but unstoppable. You step into a space where growth, resilience, and success are not accidental, they are inevitable. And that is a power worth claiming. Look closer at the people around you, and you'll notice a pattern that most overlook. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's a hesitation to think deeply, a reluctance to question, a comfort in accepting things at face value. This is not mere laziness, it is a mindset. It is a mental habit that over time shapes reality. Those who avoid reflection, who dismiss learning, who ignore the weight of consequences, are silently choosing a path of limitation. Observing this is not meant to breed contempt, it is meant to awaken discernment, to sharpen your awareness, and to ignite the fire of your own intentional growth. Every person who drifts in shallow thinking presents a lesson if you are willing to see it, a mirror showing exactly what you must avoid to protect your potential. When a mind refuses to challenge itself, refuses to seek clarity, it creates a cycle of repeated mistakes. The frustration you feel when witnessing this is your internal compass. It signals that wisdom is not guaranteed, it must be earned, nurtured, and defended. Every impulsive decision, every thoughtless comment, every rejection of logic chips away at opportunity, freedom, and progress. But your awareness of this creates a choice. You can either absorb the chaos and confusion around you, letting it subtly erode your clarity, or you can rise above it, consciously building a fortress of discernment and insight. This is where true power lives, not in avoiding mistakes entirely, but in cultivating the skill to recognize danger before it touches your path. The truth is, most people drift through life unaware of the consequences of their shallow thinking. They mistake speed for intelligence, noise for knowledge, confidence for wisdom. And yet, every moment you spend watching, observing, reflecting, you are doing something rare. You are learning to see the world through the lens of awareness. You are building a mental map that separates the fleeting from the meaningful, the impulsive from the intentional. This skill becomes a compass, guiding your actions, protecting your time, and amplifying your impact. You are no longer at the mercy of other people's errors. You are cultivating your own mastery over your mind and your life. There is a profound emotional reward in this clarity. As you recognize the signs of shallow thinking, you begin to feel a quiet confidence that cannot be shaken. You start to trust your own judgment because it is tested, refined, and conscious. You understand that true intelligence is not measured by speed or showmanship, but by reflection, understanding, and thoughtful action. Every decision you make becomes an opportunity to reinforce this truth, to create a life that is deliberate, meaningful, and resilient. The energy that once frustrated you is transformed into strength. The distraction that once pulled you off course becomes a guide, reminding you to focus, to question, and to rise. Imagine living in a space where clarity guides every thought, where intention shapes every action, where every choice reinforces growth rather than chaos. That space is within reach, but it requires vigilance. It demands that you recognize the subtle patterns of poor judgment in others and, in turn, examine your own mind with unflinching honesty. It requires the courage to reject superficial thinking, to challenge assumptions, and to insist upon depth in every decision. And as you do, you will notice a shift, a quiet, unstoppable momentum building within you. It is the momentum of someone who refuses to be limited by the shallow thinking of the world, who chooses clarity over confusion, wisdom over impulsivity, and action over indecision. That momentum is freedom, and it is yours to claim. Consider the moments when someone's actions seem baffling, when decisions are made without foresight, and the outcome is predictable chaos. It is easy to dismiss these instances as quirks or bad luck, but they are far more revealing. They expose a fundamental truth about human behavior, a mind that refuses to think critically, that avoids reflection, that clings to convenience over clarity, is a mind trapped in cycles of failure. And when you become attuned to this truth, you gain a lens through which the world transforms. You begin to see not only the mistakes others make, but the consequences those mistakes invite, and you understand that the same patterns, if left unchecked, could quietly infiltrate your own life. Awareness becomes armor, and reflection becomes your most powerful weapon. When a person habitually avoids responsibility for their thoughts, decisions, or actions, it is not merely foolishness, it is a form of self-sabotage. Every impulsive choice, every shallow argument, every unexamined belief chips away at potential. This is not just about intelligence or talent, it is about the discipline of the mind. It is about learning to pause, to evaluate, to weigh options, and to anticipate consequences. Recognizing these traits in others is essential because it allows you to differentiate between chaos and clarity, between distraction and focus, between influence that lifts you up and influence that holds you back. You learn to invest your energy wisely, to cultivate relationships that expand your growth, and to protect your mind from the subtle erosion caused by shallow thinking. The emotional impact of this realization is profound. Frustration transforms into empowerment. Confusion becomes clarity. You start to notice how effortless it is for shallow thinking to spread, how quickly indecision, impulsivity, and ignorance can affect those around you. But you also see the power you possess to resist that pull, to stand apart, to act deliberately in every area of life. Every observation becomes a lesson. Every interaction becomes a choice. Will you absorb the chaos or will you rise above it? This discernment is not passive. It is a muscle that grows stronger each time you exercise it. It becomes a force that guides every step, every decision, every pursuit of progress, ensuring that your trajectory is defined, not by randomness or poor judgment, but by intention and clarity. There is a profound reward in this mastery. As you cultivate the ability to recognize shallow thinking in others, you begin to see patterns where others see only confusion. You develop a precision of mind that allows you to navigate life with certainty and purpose. You gain confidence because your choices are informed, deliberate, and aligned with growth. The noise, the impulsivity, and the thoughtless reactions of others no longer derail you. They sharpen your focus, reinforce your resolve, and strengthen your resilience. You begin to inhabit a space where clarity is constant, and your actions consistently reinforce the life you are determined to create. Imagine the peace that comes from this awareness. Imagine walking through life equipped with the understanding that every choice, every action, and every relationship is filtered through clarity and wisdom. You no longer drift, you move with intention. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer fear the chaos around you because you have built an inner fortress of discernment, reflection, and purpose. This is not theoretical. This is attainable. And as you embrace it, you step into a version of yourself that is untouchable by shallow thinking, unstoppable in your progress, and unwavering in your pursuit of the life you are capable of creating. The power of awareness is yours, and it begins the moment you decide to see clearly, think deeply, and act deliberately. Notice how easy it is for some people to repeat the same mistakes over and over, as if the lessons of experience pass them by entirely. Their minds cling to convenience over truth, impulse over reflection, noise over clarity. This is more than just poor judgment. It is a refusal to engage with the depth required for growth. And when you recognize this, it becomes impossible to ignore the contrast with your own potential. Each careless decision, each shallow thought, is a reminder of the choice you have to drift with the currents of thoughtless living, or to rise deliberately and powerfully into a life defined by intention, insight, and wisdom. Awareness of these patterns transforms frustration into strategy. Every moment you witness shallow thinking is an opportunity to refine your own mind, to strengthen your discipline, and to fortify your capacity for meaningful action. A mind that avoids reflection, that resists learning, or that dismisses reason creates consequences that extend far beyond itself. It spreads confusion, disrupts clarity, and can quietly erode the stability of relationships, careers, and dreams. Observing this is not about criticism. It is about understanding cause and effect at its most raw and undeniable level. When you pay attention, you see the invisible threads connecting thought, action, and outcome. You begin to recognize the subtle signs that distinguish impulsive behavior from intentional decision-making, shallow reasoning from thoughtful analysis. And with this recognition comes power, the power to navigate life with precision, to invest your energy in people, ideas, and actions that elevate, and to avoid those that drain and distract. The emotional resonance of this understanding is transformative. Frustration, once aimed outward, is redirected inward as motivation. You feel a drive to refine your own judgment, to cultivate mental clarity, and to ensure that every action you take reflects conscious choice rather than habit or impulse. This is not simply a cognitive exercise. It is a profound alignment of mind, heart, and purpose. The awareness of what is lacking in others becomes a mirror showing you what must never be lacking in yourself. It sparks a hunger for discipline, reflection, and growth so intense that indecision, impulsivity, and thoughtlessness begin to feel intolerable. This clarity also reshapes your perception of influence. People who operate without reflection often create environments of distraction, stress, and wasted energy. You are no longer subject to their sway because your awareness acts as a shield, allowing you to filter noise from truth, impulse from intention, and chaos from opportunity. Every choice you make becomes a conscious act of creation. Every interaction a chance to reinforce the principles that guide you. You start to operate from a position of insight rather than reaction, and your confidence grows because it is rooted in understanding and deliberate action, not in external validation or circumstance. Imagine moving through life with this level of clarity. Imagine the certainty that comes from knowing that your thoughts are disciplined, your actions intentional, and your path guided by reason and foresight. Every distraction fades, every misjudgment loses its grip, and every challenge becomes an opportunity to exercise your strength of mind. You are no longer a passive participant in the world. You are a master of your choices, a guardian of your energy, and an architect of a life defined not by the shallow thinking of others, but by the deliberate, unwavering intelligence you cultivate in yourself. The world may offer chaos, confusion, and impulsivity, but you rise above it with clarity, purpose, and unstoppable momentum. Look inward for a moment and ask yourself how often you settle for the easy answer, the comfortable belief, the first thought that comes to mind. This is the trap that ensnares so many, mistaking surface-level understanding for real insight, confusing noise for knowledge, speed for wisdom. A shallow mind resists the effort of reflection, avoiding the discomfort that comes with questioning, analyzing, and challenging itself. But the discomfort is not punishment. It is a signal, a compass pointing toward growth. Each moment you resist laziness and thought. Each time you demand clarity instead of convenience, you strengthen your capacity to act with purpose. This is where true power is born, in the moments when you refuse to accept the obvious, when you dig beneath the surface to uncover what is real, what is true, and what will sustain you over time. The danger of a mind untested is subtle but relentless. When people avoid the responsibility of thinking deeply, they allow impulsivity to dictate outcomes, repeat mistakes without learning, and inadvertently create a ripple of consequences that touches everyone around them. Observing this can feel infuriating at times, yet that frustration is a gift. It is proof that you can recognize the difference between thoughtless behavior and conscious action. It is proof that your mind is awake, your instincts attuned, your standards uncompromising. When you turn this awareness inward, you unlock the ability to think clearly even when the world seems chaotic, to make decisions deliberately when others are swayed by impulse, and to protect yourself from the subtle erosion that shallow thinking brings. Every choice, every reflection, every pause becomes a building block of resilience, mastery, and intelligence. There is an emotional clarity that comes from rejecting superficiality. Frustration, confusion, and even fear transform into focus, purpose, and drive. You start to recognize that intelligence is not about appearances, not about proving yourself in front of others, and not about reacting quickly. True intelligence is cultivated, deliberate, and grounded in understanding. Each time you choose to reflect instead of react, to analyze instead of assume, to question instead of accept, you reinforce a mindset that elevates every area of your life. Your decisions become less about chance and more about precision, less about convenience and more about impact. This is not merely a skill, it is a way of life, a commitment to ensuring that you do not drift in the currents of impulsive or shallow thought. Your environment begins to change as a result. People who thrive on noise, distraction, or impulsivity no longer influence your trajectory because you have built an inner fortress of discernment. You see through superficiality, and your choices are filtered by clarity. You no longer waste energy on arguments that have no depth, no attention on judgments that lack reason, and no time on decisions that compromise your growth. Each interaction, each observation, each thought is intentional, deliberate, and aligned with your long-term vision. The world continues to swirl with chaos and distraction, but you stand anchored in purpose, guided by insight, and propelled by clarity. Imagine the transformation this brings. A mind that refuses shallow thinking becomes a magnet for opportunity, a source of calm in turbulence, and a force that shapes circumstances rather than being shaped by them. Every challenge is approached with discernment, every decision is rooted in understanding, and every interaction reinforces your commitment to growth. The habits of superficial thought that limit others cannot touch you, because your mind is trained, disciplined, and vigilant. The life that emerges is not accidental. It is deliberate, intentional, and unstoppable. You become proof that clarity, reflection, and conscious choice are not just ideals. They are the foundation of a life lived at its highest potential. Ask yourself how often you allow emotion to dictate thought, to shape decisions before reason has a chance to speak. This is a quiet trap that ensnares more people than you realize. Impulsivity masquerades as spontaneity, reaction masquerades as wisdom, and comfort masquerades as understanding. Every time a choice is made without reflection, the consequences ripple outward, shaping a life unconsciously rather than intentionally. But there is an alternative, a higher path, a path where every thought is examined, every impulse measured, every emotion acknowledged, but never allowed to rule. Walking this path requires courage because it demands honesty, self-discipline, and the willingness to confront discomfort. It demands the realization that the mind is a tool, and mastery of that tool is what separates potential from wasted opportunity. People who fail to reflect, who allow emotion and habit to dictate action, do not simply harm themselves, they distort the environment around them. Their decisions create chaos. Their assumptions propagate misunderstanding, and their refusal to engage with truth invites repeated failure. Observing this, however, is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a call to action. When you recognize these patterns in others, you are offered a mirror. You see the consequences of thoughtless behavior, and you are reminded that the same patterns can be avoided through conscious effort. This recognition sparks a profound internal shift. Frustration transforms into vigilance, distraction transforms into focus, and awareness transforms into deliberate, unstoppable action. You begin to live not as a passive participant, but as an active architect of your destiny, shaping every decision with precision, purpose, and insight. There is a unique emotional power in this awareness. The chaos that once frustrated you becomes fuel. The impulsivity of others becomes a lens through which your own discipline is sharpened. Each observation, each interaction, each choice becomes an opportunity to strengthen your mind and fortify your clarity. You begin to understand that intelligence is not the absence of mistakes, but the conscious avoidance of patterns that lead to them. Every action rooted in reflection, every thought scrutinized for depth, every impulse weighed for consequence, builds an internal architecture of strength, resilience, and focus. Your mind becomes a place of clarity where distraction cannot thrive, where impulsivity is tamed, and where potential is no longer theoretical but actualized. Your environment begins to bend to this newfound discipline. The superficiality, the thoughtlessness, and the impulsivity of others no longer disrupt your trajectory. Instead, they highlight the contrast between chaos and clarity, offering constant reinforcement for the path you have chosen. Your choices become intentional instruments of progress. Your interactions become vehicles for insight. And your energy is no longer scattered but concentrated on what truly matters. The world continues to offer noise and distraction, but your mind remains anchored. Your focus remains sharp, and your momentum becomes unstoppable. Imagine the freedom that comes from mastering this dynamic. A life where reflection precedes reaction, where purpose outweighs impulse, where clarity guides every decision. The habits of shallow thought, of impulsive reaction, of superficial judgment cannot touch you because your awareness is trained, your discipline is firm, and your intent is unwavering. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstance or the chaos of others. You are a force of deliberate, conscious, unstoppable action. Every moment becomes an opportunity to reinforce your clarity, to sharpen your focus, and to advance toward the life you are capable of creating, a life defined not by chance, not by impulse, but by the power of deliberate thought and intentional action. Consider how often people convince themselves that knowing just a little is enough, that surface-level understanding is sufficient. They settle for fragments of truth, for half-baked reasoning, and for opinions formed without effort or evidence. This is not simply ignorance, it is a surrender of potential. Every time knowledge is abandoned for convenience, every time curiosity is stifled by comfort, the mind shrinks a little and opportunity drifts further out of reach. But you are not here to settle. You are here because you understand that growth requires more than casual observation. It demands relentless questioning, deep engagement, and the courage to confront what is uncomfortable. The choice is yours, to follow the easy, unexamined path, or to rise with intention, sharpening your mind and expanding your understanding with every step you take. When you observe the patterns of shallow thought in others, it can feel overwhelming, even frustrating. They act without insight, judge without depth, and speak without understanding. But this awareness is a tool, a powerful mirror reflecting the difference between reaction and reflection, between impulse and intention. Frustration becomes fuel. Irritation becomes clarity. Every careless remark, every unexamined assumption, every shallow judgment becomes a lesson in what to avoid and a guide for how to operate differently. You begin to see the unseen currents that influence decisions, the hidden consequences of thoughtless actions, and the long-term impact of choices made without reflection. This knowledge is not merely protective, it is liberating. It equips you to act with precision, to communicate with understanding, and to live with purpose. There is an emotional intensity that comes from mastering this awareness. The shallow thinking of others, instead of creating doubt or despair, sharpens your focus and strengthens your resolve. You feel a surge of empowerment knowing that your mind is under your control, that your decisions are deliberate, and that your energy is invested in meaningful growth rather than wasted on distraction. This is the essence of personal mastery, the ability to filter noise, resist impulse, and anchor yourself in clarity even when the world around you is chaotic. Every thought you refine, every assumption you question, every habit you elevate becomes a testament to the strength of your mind and the depth of your commitment. Your environment begins to transform as a result. Superficiality, impulsivity, and shallow reasoning no longer dictate the pace of your life. Instead, they highlight the contrast between chaos and clarity, reinforcing the value of conscious choice. You act with foresight, interact with intention, and focus with unwavering precision. The distractions of others cannot derail your path because your awareness serves as both compass and shield. Energy that was once dissipated on the trivial now channels toward growth, achievement, and influence. Every day, you cultivate habits of discernment, insight, and deliberate action, creating a life that reflects not the noise around you, but the intelligence within you. Imagine moving through the world with this level of clarity. A life where knowledge is pursued relentlessly, where understanding precedes judgment, and where every decision is measured against purpose and truth. The pitfalls of shallow thought no longer hold sway because your mind has been trained to see deeply. Act deliberately and invest fully in what matters. Each interaction, each challenge, each choice becomes a moment to reinforce your power, sharpen your clarity, and expand your influence. You are no longer a bystander in life. You are a creator, a master, and a force of deliberate intelligence, shaping a reality defined by insight, intention, and unstoppable momentum. Ask yourself how often you follow the crowd without questioning where it is going, how often you let others dictate your beliefs, your choices, and even your sense of reality. The desire to fit in, to avoid conflict, to accept the majority as automatically right is a quiet prison that few recognize. Each time you allow external approval to shape your decisions, you surrender a piece of your potential. You are capable of thinking beyond convenience, of seeing beyond the surface, of acting with courage, even when it isolates you. The people who live unconsciously follow patterns set by fear and habit, but you are capable of breaking those patterns. You are capable of insisting on clarity, understanding, and depth, even if it means standing alone. Blind conformity is one of the most common traps of shallow thinking. It disguises itself as safety, comfort, and belonging, but it slowly erodes the mind's capacity for discernment. When you see this in others, it can be frustrating, but it is also illuminating. It shows you the difference between passive existence and conscious living. Each time someone reacts without thought, each time an assumption goes unquestioned, each time a belief is accepted without evidence, you are offered a mirror. You see what is avoidable, what is unnecessary, and what is dangerous. This recognition is empowering because it positions you differently. You are no longer swept along by currents of ignorance, but instead anchored by the strength of your own reflection and judgment. There is a profound emotional shift that comes from rejecting the need for approval. Fear of judgment diminishes when clarity becomes your compass. The temptation to conform weakens when purpose becomes your guide. You begin to understand that the opinions of others are not chains to bind you, but signals to examine. Not every voice deserves a seat in your mind, and not every expectation deserves your energy. The courage to think independently transforms anxiety into confidence, uncertainty into focus, and hesitation into decisive action. You no longer live in reaction to others. You live in alignment with your own highest standards, your deepest values, and your most compelling vision of what is possible. Your environment responds to this clarity. The influence of shallow thinkers fades because their energy no longer controls you. You begin to filter interactions, choosing when and where to invest your attention, and refusing to allow noise to dictate your trajectory. Each interaction, each decision, each thought becomes a deliberate act of self-determination. You cultivate an inner resilience that shields you from distraction and manipulation, allowing you to operate at a higher level of focus and purpose. The habits of conformity that limit others cannot touch you because your mind is trained to see deeply, Act deliberately and maintain alignment with truth and intentionality. Imagine moving through life as an independent thinker, free from the invisible chains of approval, expectation, and shallow influence. Every choice is guided by insight rather than impulse, every belief is tested rather than assumed, and every action is rooted in clarity rather than convenience. The patterns that trap others in mediocrity cannot define your reality because your mind is disciplined, your vision is precise, and your commitment to growth is unshakable. You are no longer a passive participant. You are a conscious architect of your life, shaping a future defined not by conformity, not by fear, but by courage, insight, and unstoppable momentum. Consider how often people mistake volume for value, how loud opinions, endless chatter, and constant noise are assumed to carry weight. The loudest voice in the room is not always the wisest, yet so many surrender to the illusion that noise equals knowledge. When you notice this in others, it can feel infuriating, but it is also revealing. It teaches you the power of silence, the strength of listening, and the unmatched value of measured thought. Those who speak without depth, who argue without understanding, or who assert without reason are signaling exactly what they lack. And that awareness becomes your advantage, your opportunity to rise above, to act with precision, and to claim the clarity that they cannot grasp. There is an emotional liberation in resisting the pull of empty noise. To refuse the temptation to shout back, to ignore distractions that do not serve your purpose, and to focus unwaveringly on what truly matters is a radical act of self-respect. Every time you hold your focus when others are flustered, every time you maintain composure while others react impulsively, you reinforce your power. You show yourself and the world that your mind is not for sale to chaos, that your attention is sacred, and that your energy is invested in creating rather than reacting. This is the distinction between those who drift through life and those who command it. Silence and reflection are not signs of weakness. They are the hallmarks of strength. Deep thinking, intentional listening, and careful observation build foundations that noise can never replicate. While others squander energy on arguing, boasting, or performing for approval, you build insight, knowledge, and resilience. Every quiet decision, every thoughtful response, and every deliberate action compounds your power. You are cultivating an inner fortress, one that protects your clarity and amplifies your impact. The contrast becomes undeniable. While chaos rages around you, your mind remains anchored, sharp, and unstoppable. The ability to filter noise reshapes your reality. It gives you a lens to see clearly where others see confusion. It allows you to discern value where others are blind to truth. Every conversation, every encounter, every interaction becomes an opportunity to focus your energy rather than scatter it. You begin to recognize patterns, intentions, and consequences that others overlook. What once seemed like distraction now becomes a guide, pointing you toward areas where depth, clarity, and action matter most. You are no longer subject to the whims of impulsive minds. You are the observer, the strategist, the conscious actor, shaping outcomes with intention. Imagine the freedom that comes from mastering this principle. Life is no longer dictated by the loudest, most frantic signals. Your focus is unshakable. Your decisions are deliberate. Your influence is magnified because your mind is not cluttered by noise but honed by thought. Every word you speak, every choice you make, and every action you take carries weight because it is rooted in understanding, clarity, and purpose. You move through the world, untethered by the chaos around you, unshaken by superficial opinions, and unstoppable in your pursuit of growth, wisdom, and excellence. You are no longer reacting. You are creating, shaping, and transforming your reality with every deliberate step. Have you ever noticed how some people react to every little challenge as if the world is against them? How they surrender to frustration, blame, and excuses? It is exhausting to witness, but even more important is what it reveals about the choices you can make. Emotional reactivity is a trap, a cycle that keeps people small, powerless, and disconnected from their true potential. Every outburst, every defensive argument, every knee-jerk response chips away at clarity, focus, and influence. When you allow yourself to break free from this cycle, you unlock an inner power that few ever tap into. You discover that composure, self-control, and intentional action are not weaknesses. They are the greatest weapons of transformation. The first step in harnessing this power is awareness. Recognize the moments when emotion wants to hijack your mind. Feel it rise, acknowledge it, and then choose differently. Choose to act with reason, to pause before reacting, to evaluate before responding. The strength to rise above the chaos begins with this conscious choice. The world rewards those who respond, not those who react. Those who think before they speak, who weigh before they act, and who remain anchored when others are adrift will always command greater influence, respect, and opportunity. This is not about suppressing feelings, it is about channeling them. Energy that is uncontrolled becomes destructive, but energy that is directed becomes unstoppable. Emotional intelligence is the silent force that separates those who drift through life from those who carve paths of impact. Every time you manage your emotional impulses, you are investing in freedom, the freedom to think clearly, to act deliberately, and to focus relentlessly on your goals. Others may be consumed by resentment, envy, or frustration, but you maintain sovereignty over your mind. You are no longer tossed by waves of reaction. You are the captain of your own ship, charting courses with precision and confidence. The capacity to observe without being consumed, to feel without being dictated, transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. The rewards of this mastery are profound. Decisions become sharper, relationships become stronger, and opportunities multiply because you operate from clarity instead of chaos. You gain the ability to see beyond immediate discomfort or irritation and align every action with long-term purpose. You become a magnet for growth, learning, and influence because people are drawn to those who remain grounded, composed, and purposeful. While others are locked in cycles of frustration, you move with intention, creating momentum where stagnation once ruled. The energy you cultivate is contagious, inspiring those around you without effort, shaping environments that favor progress, wisdom, and resilience. Imagine the life you can create when emotional reactivity no longer dictates your reality. Every challenge becomes a test of mastery. Every setback a lesson in resilience, and every interaction an opportunity to lead with strength and clarity. You are no longer subject to the turmoil that ensnares others. Instead, you harness it, transform it, and redirect it into a force that propels you forward. Every thought, every word, and every action becomes a reflection of self-discipline, courage, and intentional power. You are no longer a passenger in your life. You are the driver, the strategist, and the architect of an unstoppable journey toward excellence, influence, and freedom. Have you ever watched someone insist they are always right, even when the evidence is clear? It is uncomfortable to witness, but it is even more dangerous to ignore what it teaches us about our own choices. Stubbornness, blind certainty, and an unwillingness to learn are not just flaws, they are self-imposed barriers that trap people in mediocrity. Those who refuse to listen, to adapt, or to admit they are wrong are cutting themselves off from growth, from opportunity, and from the clarity that transforms lives. And when you recognize this in the world around you, it becomes a mirror. It asks you, will you let ego dictate your decisions, or will you embrace humility as a path to power? Humility is not weakness, it is strength in disguise. The ability to acknowledge what you do not know, to accept feedback, and to evolve is what separates those who stagnate from those who soar. Every person you meet who refuses to learn, who clings to outdated beliefs, is a warning sign, a demonstration of what happens when pride overpowers wisdom. By choosing the opposite path, you open doors that others slam shut in their own faces. The willingness to listen, to question, and to adapt is a superpower that multiplies influence, insight, and success in ways that stubborn certainty can never touch. This is more than just intellectual growth, it is emotional liberation. Pride and defensiveness chain the mind, keeping it trapped in a cycle of repetitive mistakes, frustration, and missed opportunities. When you release the need to always be right, you release the weight that blinds judgment, clouds decisions, and drains energy. Every moment you embrace curiosity over certainty, every instance you choose understanding over ego, you expand your capacity for insight, empathy, and action. the world begins to reveal itself not as a battlefield of opinions, but as a landscape of possibilities waiting for those brave enough to adapt. The impact of this mindset is profound. People gravitate toward those who are open, flexible, and wise. Doors that once seemed closed begin to open. Challenges that once appeared overwhelming are reframed as opportunities for mastery. The more you embrace learning, the more resilient you become. Mistakes stop being humiliating, they become stepping stones. Criticism stops being threatening, it becomes fuel. Every encounter, every obstacle, every situation is transformed into a tool for growth, a chance to refine strategy, and a moment to build unshakable confidence. Imagine a life in which your mind is not confined by stubbornness or fear of being wrong. Imagine navigating decisions with clarity, courage, and curiosity. You are no longer trapped by the limitations others accept as inevitable. You learn, you adapt, and you rise. Every choice becomes informed, every action becomes intentional, and every path you take is guided by insight rather than ego. This is how extraordinary lives are built, through humility that empowers, curiosity that drives, and a relentless commitment to growth. By embracing what you do not yet know, you gain what others can never access: true wisdom, authentic influence, and unstoppable momentum toward the life you are capable of creating. Have you ever noticed how some people avoid responsibility as if it were a curse? How they shift blame to anyone or anything rather than facing the truth? It is easy to dismiss, but it is a warning, a reflection of the hidden chains that hold so many lives captive. Refusing to own your actions, to face your mistakes, or to accept the consequences of your decisions is not just a habit, it is a trap. Every time you avoid responsibility, you give away your power, your freedom, and your ability to grow. The moment you step into accountability, you step into a force far stronger than fear, excuses, or hesitation. Accountability is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It transforms weakness into strength, mistakes into lessons, and setbacks into stepping stones. The world does not reward avoidance. It rewards courage, clarity, and consistent action. Every time you accept responsibility for your choices, you reclaim control over your life. You stop allowing circumstances, other people, or misfortune to dictate your reality. The simple act of saying, "I am responsible for this," carries immense power. It is a declaration that you will no longer be a passive observer of your life, but an active creator of it. This is not about perfection, it is about ownership. People who shirk responsibility often live in a state of fear, fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of discomfort. They justify, rationalize, and deflect, but all of it costs energy, clarity, and momentum. Choosing accountability frees you from this invisible weight. It allows you to see clearly, think strategically, and act decisively. When you embrace responsibility, you are no longer at the mercy of life's chaos. You become the author of your story, the architect of your destiny, and the force that turns obstacles into opportunities. The impact of accountability on your relationships and your influence is transformative. Those who take ownership command respect naturally. People trust those who face challenges head-on, admit mistakes honestly, and strive to correct them diligently. Influence grows because reliability grows. Opportunities appear where hesitation and blame once blocked the path. Every decision becomes intentional, every action becomes aligned with purpose, and every step you take moves you closer to the life you deserve. Accountability turns potential into performance, and performance into results that are undeniable and lasting. Imagine the freedom that comes when excuses no longer define you. Imagine the clarity that arrives when fear of judgment is replaced by the power of ownership. Every setback becomes a lesson, every failure becomes a teacher, and every difficult choice becomes a demonstration of courage. When you accept responsibility fully, you remove limitations that others allow to control them. You transform fear into confidence, doubt into determination, and hesitation into action. Accountability is not just a principle, it is the lifeline to growth, influence, and transformation. Every decision you make from this place is infused with intention, strength, and unstoppable momentum, shaping a future that reflects your true potential and your unwavering commitment to rise above the ordinary. Have you ever felt the frustration of watching someone talk without thinking, reacting without awareness, or speaking to impress rather than to understand? It is exhausting to witness, and yet it holds a powerful lesson for those who are willing to see it. Mindless words and impulsive reactions are not just irritating, they are signs of a mind untrained, a focus unsharpened, and a life unconsciously surrendered to chaos. The moment we recognize the damage caused by thoughtless speech and reactive behavior, we gain the chance to rise above it. Every word you choose, every pause you take, every reaction you control becomes a tool of immense power. Discipline of thought and speech is a gateway to mastery. The mind that learns to pause before it speaks, to measure its reactions, and to act with deliberate intent commands influence beyond measure. Words are not just expressions. They are seeds planted in the world, shaping perception, forging connections, and creating reality itself. Those who speak without awareness plant confusion, division, and limitation. Those who speak with clarity, wisdom, and purpose plant trust, respect, and opportunity. By cultivating mindful communication, you take control of your environment, your relationships, and your destiny. The power of awareness extends beyond speech. Impulse, emotion, and reaction often drive people into unnecessary conflict, missed opportunities, and regret. A mind trained to pause, observe, and respond deliberately transforms every challenge into a choice, every confrontation into a strategy, and every mistake into a lesson. The people who seem to navigate life effortlessly are not luckier. They are more mindful. They understand that thoughtless reactions are traps that steal energy, clarity, and time. By mastering your mind, you stop giving away your power, and you start creating results that reflect your true potential. The impact of controlled thought and speech on your life is profound. People are drawn to presence, to confidence that is rooted in awareness rather than noise. Influence is not gained by volume or impulsiveness. It is gained by the precision of your actions, the weight of your words, and the calm authority of your mind. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to build respect. Every decision becomes a step toward growth, and every interaction becomes a reflection of your inner strength. When you harness the power of mindful awareness, you stop reacting to life and start designing it with clarity and intention. Imagine living a life where every word you speak carries weight, where every action reflects choice, and where every emotion is a guide rather than a master. Imagine the clarity that comes when impulsive reactions no longer sabotage your progress, and the confidence that rises when you control your focus, your speech, and your behavior. Mastery of thought and speech is not about perfection. It is about empowerment. It transforms chaos into order, distraction into attention, and noise into clarity. Every moment of awareness is a moment of freedom, a moment of influence, and a moment to shape the life you are truly capable of achieving. By choosing deliberate thought and mindful speech, you step fully into a world where your presence matters, your decisions count, and your life moves with unstoppable momentum toward excellence. Have you ever noticed how some people seem trapped in a cycle of failure, repeating the same mistakes over and over, never learning, never growing? It is not just coincidence. It is a reflection of the mind refusing to adapt, to observe, to evolve. Stubbornness in the face of evidence, pride in ignorance, and a refusal to admit error are silent killers of potential. The moment we see this clearly in others, we are offered a mirror. How many times have we held on to a false belief, defended a poor choice, or ignored the lessons life was presenting because our ego refused to bend? The courage to change begins with recognizing this pattern and confronting it without excuses. Growth is not optional. It is essential. Every mistake ignored, every lesson unlearned, every truth avoided compounds over time, creating chains that limit your freedom, your success, and your happiness. A mind that refuses to learn is a mind that stagnates, and stagnation is the slow death of dreams. The people who succeed are not immune to error. They are relentless in seeking the truth, in questioning their assumptions, and in adjusting their course when confronted with evidence. They see failure not as shame, but as a signpost, pointing the way forward. By embracing the humility to learn, you gain a power that no circumstance, no criticism, no obstacle can ever take from you. Humility in learning is not weakness, it is strength. It is the recognition that wisdom comes from observation, reflection, and adaptation, not from blind confidence or empty pride. Every lesson absorbed, every idea challenged, every correction accepted expands your vision, sharpens your skills, and builds resilience. Those who refuse to grow may appear confident in the moment, but their future is constrained by the narrow walls of their own stubbornness. True strength is found in the willingness to confront discomfort, to admit mistakes, and to take deliberate action to improve. This courage transforms the ordinary into extraordinary, the predictable into possibility, and the stagnant into unstoppable momentum. Your mind is your most powerful tool, and how you use it determines everything you experience. Ignoring lessons, avoiding truth, and clinging to outdated beliefs are acts of self-sabotage. Every decision, every interaction, and every outcome is influenced by the clarity and flexibility of your mind. By committing to constant learning, you ensure that every moment contributes to your growth rather than your limitation. You transform every obstacle into an opportunity, every critique into insight, and every failure into a stepping stone toward mastery. Imagine a life where every challenge teaches you, every mistake strengthens you, and every truth expands your horizon. Imagine moving through the world with the confidence that comes from knowing your mind is sharp, your judgment is honed, and your vision is ever growing. The courage to learn and the humility to adapt create a life that is limitless, a mind that is unstoppable, and a spirit that is unbreakable. By rejecting stagnation and embracing evolution, you claim control of your destiny, redefine your potential, and step boldly into a future shaped by wisdom, resilience, and relentless growth. Every day becomes a chance to rise higher, to see further, and to become the person you were always capable of being. Have you ever felt the weight of wasted potential? The quiet frustration of knowing you could do more, be more, achieve more? If only you saw clearly, if only you acted wisely? That feeling is a signal, a call from within, reminding you that life rewards clarity, not confusion, action, not hesitation, awareness, not ignorance. The mind that clings to assumptions, that refuses to question itself, that dismisses information without consideration, is a mind trapped in a fog. Every choice made without thought, every reaction guided by impulse rather than insight, chips away at your power, at your freedom, at the life you could create. Awareness is the first step toward mastery. When you see your own patterns, your own blind spots, you gain the power to break free from cycles that keep you small. Ignorance is not a neutral state. It is a slow erosion of opportunity. The longer you ignore the signs of stagnation, the deeper the roots of limitation grow, anchoring you to outcomes that fall short of your potential.